Joining me now is the ever faithful to overtime, Anthony McDougle. I think we should make you a permanent fixture on the show. Delta Democrat sports editor here to finally talk high school football. Anthony, I know you're containing your excitement, but come on.
Man, I couldn't wait. I know neither one of us could wait, but it's finally here.
It's finally here. Mississippi and the Delta in general loves us some football, so let's just get straight into it. We're talking first, players to watch. You've had a host of players that you've been keeping an eye on, but we're going to stick to 3 tonight for time purposes. And of course, we'll tell you about some more, and you can always read the DDT to catch some more. Let's talk about your top players, starting with number 1.
I think number 1 obviously has to be Marquez Pound from Simmons, and that's just because he means so much to his team. And not only at running back this year, I think people will see him play a lot more on the defensive side, especially at safety. Last year, he played a little bit of DB. He made a big impact in that championship game against Lumberton with that big pick. But nobody means more to their team. Over 2,000 yards, 31 touchdowns. He had about 8 or 9 rushing, 8 or 9 games where he rushed for more than 100 yards, 3 or 4 games where he had 200. So expect to see him get the ball a lot. So number 1 obviously is Marquez Pound. Can't wait to see what he does in that new system under offensive guru Wade Tackett. He's going to have a big year once again.
Now, we'll talk more about Simmons. Obviously, Simmons and Marquez Pound kind of go hand in hand. We're now going to shift gears to right around the corner, St. Joe. You have 2 guys to keep an eye on. Let's start with the leader of that team, in Mr. Bryce Johnson. Obviously have to start with Bryce Johnson, and you're right, he is the leader of that team, and I think a lot of people are expecting them to go ahead and win that state championship this year. Last year, they really should have at least been playing for it, but Bryce is everything you want in a quarterback. He's smart, he can throw the ball, he's knowledgeable, he knows his offense, and when he needs to run, he's gonna run, and most people can't catch him. He's about a 4.5, 4.46, maybe, but he's scary fast on the field. He has great game speed. And this year, his coach has been telling me he has much more zip on the ball. His leadership is better, if you could imagine that. Last year, he was my offensive MVP, so I expect big things from him. And just for anybody who didn't know, he's also committed to the U.S. Naval Academy, which is a huge, huge thing, not only for football, but that says a lot about who he is as a young man academically as well. So expecting big things from Bryce this year. Absolutely. I know Coach Baker was telling me the biggest thing we have to see for St. Joe, and we'll talk about them in a bit too, is can that O-line protect the man? We'll see. And, you know, like you said, a good guy to watch, but you have another eye on someone on that team.
Right. And I honestly feel like this next guy may be, bar none, the best athlete in Washington County.
You heard it here first.
And that's because he does everything at such a high level. He can play any position, and he looks like he's a starter at every position. He pretty much is. I mean, he made my Prep 23 team, which is a compilation of the best 23 players in the area, as a defensive back. And, I mean, naturally he would. He had 10 interceptions, about 40 or 50 tackles. But he's also a very good running back. He's also a very good wide receiver. At running back, he had over 700 yards. At wide receiver, he had 400 or 500 yards. Get this kid the ball.
We're talking Jonathan Jordan. I don't think we mentioned his
name
because we got so caught up in his stats.
I just love to talk about how good the kid is.
Well, it's funny because today I was grabbing some footage of him, and I just love to watch this man on the court. I didn't have a ton of old St. Joe football footage, but I mean, he can tear it up on the basketball court too. So like you were saying, an overall really, really good athlete to watch. The St. Joe team is going to be fun. We also have to talk about some week 1 games, and we're going to, keep it to Anthony's area, which is, the Greenville area. What are some games that you're going to keep an eye on come Friday?
I think the biggest one will be the Greenville Gentry game, and I picked that game because there's so many storylines around it. Obviously, the biggest storyline being each team has a new coach. For Greenville, it's Sherrod Gideon. He was their offensive coordinator last year, and he took that offense to great heights last year. They put up record numbers in averages per game. They put up the most numbers offensively as far as yards gained than ever. And then on the Gentry side, they pick up Simmons' old coach in Tavares Johnson. So I'm excited to see what he does with that program.
A little battle of newbies.
Right. And it's actually becoming a bit of a rivalry, that Greenville-Gentry thing.
Right.
Greenville got the better of them last year, so I'm thinking a lot of people are expecting much of the same. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on Greenville, but I think they'll have a better year. They won 3 games last year, but it's tough in that district.
They're in one of the toughest, if not the toughest district,
right,
in just having to deal with all of those big teams, especially out of the metro area. And that second game we had up there was Washington, Jackson Academy.
Right.
Washington, you know, another school maybe some people didn't see as being a contender last year with 6 and 7. What do we hope to see in this week 1 game?
Well, I know a lot of people, you're right, a lot of people didn't expect them to be contenders, but a big thing about them, they were really one field goal away from going back to the state championship again. Records mean nothing when you get to the playoffs. 6 and 7, true, they were. But I expect big things from them again, and even considering the fact they lost a lot. They lost Anderson Shelley, they lost Cameron Skelton, they lost their starting quarterback out, Anderson Shelley, which I already said.
In saying his name twice, he was a leader of the team that, won in so many sports,
Right.
football, baseball, soccer, kind of taking on that role of multiple players. So
Not
it'll
only
be
that,
interesting.
Devontae Epson is gone
Right.
now. Richard Word's gone now. These are all district, all MIAS players. So it's going to be tough going for them to start. But Jackson Academy is a good barometer. They beat them 31-13 last year. And that's a bit of a rivalry as well. I know Washington is really eager to get that back, but Jackson Academy is loaded this year. Everyone's saying really good things about them, and as well as Jackson Prep, which is a team that Washington plays the second game of the week.
They have a really tough first 4
very
games,
tough.
those Generals. So that's going to be another team to keep an eye on. Again, traveling to the metro area and having to deal with a lot of those big programs
Right.
that we, will see come state championship time. Let's talk about Simmons. New coach. I mean, it's funny because I feel like, 9 months or so ago, we were in this spot talking about Simmons going back to back.
Right.
What's the chance that this Simmons program, under a new coach, Wade Tackett, with a lot of returning leaders and great guys, gets the three-peat?
If we're talking percentages, I don't see how you don't say it's 75 to 85% that they're in Jackson. I mean, not Jackson, I'm sorry, Oxford. I'd be really, really, really shocked if this team wasn't in Oxford at the end of the year. And that's just because look at what they're returning. We're talking Marquez Pam, Amos Robinson, Demarius Turner, Fred Smith.
I
All
don't know if
these
you
guys.
saw Marquez as a QB just in that video. I mean, the man can do it all, right?
He really
But
can.
that brings up the point with Simmons. What do they do without Chandler Robinson? Chandler Robinson going to LaFleur County this year, for those who don't know.
Well, I think the way their offense is set up over the years, they know what they're good at. And what they're good at is running the ball down your throat. But with Wade Tackett, they're going to want to throw the ball a little more. And the thing about that quarterback position is they haven't quite nailed down who's going to be the quarterback. It's still a battle going on between Antavius Rounds and Tydarius Gibson. But I feel like whoever is the quarterback, I really don't think it matters.
It's not going to be. That's not
right,
their thing. Okay.
That's really not their thing. But when they do throw the ball to guys like Amos Robinson, he's going to do what he has to do when he gets the ball. The thing is just making sure those two guys, whichever one of them wins the spot, is comfortable in the system. They can throw the ball. They can make those throws when they need to keep the offense moving, because they can't run every time. They're going to have to throw somewhere.
You don't want to tell Simmons that, because
Right.
that's what they want to do. I think maybe,
But that's
known
something
for doing
Tackett
that.
has harped on. He says he wants to switch things up a little bit offensively and get them a little more balanced. So it'll be interesting to see how much they throw the ball, but maybe 10 times.
We will stay tuned, of course. Let's round things out. We're talking St. Joe and their odds. We already mentioned Bryce and Jonathan Jordan. Where do you see this team going this season?
As far as Bryce Johnson takes them, and I know it's kind of tough to say, to limit it to something like that, but with the move down, it's hard to not expect them to do really well. But their district is really tough.
Moving down, they're still playing a lot of the same opponents, though. But the thing that interests me with St. Joe is the depth. They're a small team playing a lot of these bigger schools. Is that an issue in your opinion?
I don't think it'll be an issue, because all of these guys have been in this system for so long. All of these guys are comfortable in what they do. And where St. Joe really shines is these skill players. I put those skill players up against any MIAS team in the state. And a lot of these public schools, they're loaded at the skill position. The only question is that front, like we talked about earlier. They're so young. They're so young. But with Tri-County in the district, Manchester in the district, with Greenville Christian in the district, it's going to be tough. Tri-County, especially knowing that they were the state runner-up last year. Manchester was a playoff team. Greenville Christian was a playoff team. St. Joe almost made it to the championship I mean, name a tougher district in all of
Right.
MAIS. So I still like their odds. I just don't see how they don't at least get back to where they were last year, but they're motivated, especially Bryce and Jonathan and Coach Baker. Those guys, he has those guys motivated.
Fired up, and attitude is everything. So
Right.
we'll see. And finally, I want to talk about Greenville. You said a lot of people are sleeping on that program. New coach, but a really tough district. I mean,
Scary tough.
Yeah, scary tough. So what do we see for Greenville?
I think maybe this year they'll at least get another district win. When you look at their schedule, it's hard to see where, but
Anything in that sense would be,
Right.
better than last year.
for a team that's won a total of 3 games in the last 3 years, you have to take baby steps.
Right.
You can't enter this year expecting this team to make the playoffs and win 8 or 9 games. You have to look at their district. There's Clinton, there's Northwest Rankin, there's Madison Central, who is really, really good this year. There's Provine just came into the district. So there's not a lot of leeway.
Right.
There's just not a lot of leeway. Murrah's still there. But I'm expecting them to at least win 2. I think they should be able to beat Murrah. I think they should beat Provine. And I don't know where their other win is going to come from as far as district goes. But with Tavon Littlejohn there, their quarterback that's been pretty much into that system, he's in his senior year. I'm expecting big things from him in his first full year as a starter. The defense it looked decent in the Jamboree, according to Coach Gideon. Of course, they did drop that 12-6 to Rosa Fort. But that front is impressive with Anthony McMillan and Anthony Hawkins-Levy. They have some decent defensive backs in Zaire Green, who also is somebody to watch on the offensive side of the ball. He's kind of one of those Jonathan Jordan guys. If he touches the rock, just look for big things. So
Lots to look forward to,
Right.
nonetheless. We always appreciate you, Anthony, and we appreciate you, football gods, for giving us high school football back. We'll have much more coming up after the break. Thanks again, Anthony.